Hello and welcome to the Capitol Report on NTD Television. I'm Steve Lance. England's Queen Elizabeth has died. Her passing came just hours after doctors sent her to the hospital. Hundreds of people gathered outside the gates as Buckingham Palace made the announcement this afternoon. Immediately after the news broke, officials extended their sympathies and respect to the royal family and the British people. President Biden and the First Lady today released a joint statement writing, quote, "Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II was more than a monarch. She defined an era." They also sent their condolences to the royal family. Queen Elizabeth was the longest-serving monarch in British history, with a reign of 70 years and 214 days. She took the throne at age 25, but she was 14 when she gave her first public address during World War II. The Queen anointed her 15th Prime Minister, Liz Truss, earlier this week. Truss said the news was a shock and said modern Britain flourished under her reign. Taking the throne, Prince Charles of Wales, that's the late Queen's eldest son. King Charles III took over immediately. The Queen of England was 96 years old. House GOP representatives want to take a new approach to countering the Chinese Communist Party. This as Republicans plan to unveil their midterm agenda in 10 days. Here are the details.
You might own the White House, but you no longer will own the People's House.
Predicting the GOP will reclaim the majority in the November midterms, House Republicans say they want to bring real changes to America's policies on China.
When we get the majority back, we're going to prepare America to win the great power competition against China.
House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy and other Republicans led a press conference in Texas on Thursday. They vowed to enforce sanctions on Chinese slave labor, block China's influence on American universities, and crack down on Beijing's espionage in the U.S.
Not through talk, but through actions and words and deeds.
Democrats have also stepped up their message of countering China. Following a trip by House Speaker Nancy Pelosi to Taiwan in August, a slew of bipartisan delegations has visited the democratically ruled island. The latest one traveled there on Thursday.
Is a symbol of Congress's rock-solid commitment to Taiwan.
The Biden administration is also hailing its efforts to compete with China, including the passage of the bipartisan CHIPS Act.
And China is trying to move away ahead of us. It's no wonder the Chinese Communist Party actively lobbied U.S. business against this bill.
Despite that, the House GOP says the administration has not stood up to the communist regime.
And as a result, today, China continues to steal America's intellectual property with impunity.
And on September 19, McCarthy is expected to unveil the GOP's midterm platform, which will cover the economy, the border, parental rights, and government accountability.
President Biden's new clean energy advisor, John Podesta, could have ties with the Chinese Communist Party. It's according to an investigation by the Daily Caller. They found that Podesta has cooperated with the China-U.S. Exchange Foundation, or CUSEF, since 2009. CUSEF is registered as a Chinese agent in the U.S. under the Foreign Agents Registration Act and is backed by the CCP. According to the group's annual reports, Podesta sits on the group's U.S.-China 2022 Steering Committee. He has also written 3 articles for the group's website since 2011. The chairman of the CUSEF is also chair of a CCP agency in China known as the Political Consultative Conference. The Pentagon has stopped accepting deliveries of F-35 fighter jets. The F-35 is one of the most powerful fighter jets in the world, but one of the parts being used in its engine was discovered to be made in China. Lockheed Martin, the manufacturer of the jets, released a statement saying that, quote, "out of abundance of caution, there is a temporary pause on all deliveries of the aircraft." The company has already found an alternative part for the engine. During the evacuation of Afghanistan just over a year ago, the United States brought nearly 80,000 Afghan citizens into the U.S., but not all of them were vetted properly. According to a recent report, the Department of Homeland Security encountered obstacles screening the evacuees and could have allowed people who pose a national security threat into the United States. The Office of Inspector General conducted an audit to determine the extent to which the DHS vetted the evacuees. They found that identification information such as name, date of birth, and travel document data was often missing or inaccurate. They also determined that Customs and Border Protection let evacuees who were not fully vetted into the U.S. In the wake of the illegal immigration crisis on the southern border, Washington, D.C. has declared a state of emergency. D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser has opened a new office allocating $10 million to handle the influx of illegal border crossers arriving in the sanctuary city. Former Trump advisor Steve Bannon turned himself into authorities in New York today. The state is charging him for money laundering and fraud linked to his fundraising effort to build a border wall on private land.
We are here today to announce the indictment of Stephen Bannon and We Build the Wall Incorporated for a year-long fundraising scheme that netted more than $15 million from thousands of donors across the country based on false pretenses.
Bannon calls the timing of the charges political, as it's now only 60 days away from the midterm elections.
This is all about 60 days from the day. 60 days.
Former President Trump pardoned Bannon on federal charges over the same matter, but that doesn't cover state investigations. Normally, someone cannot be tried twice for the same thing, but it's unclear if that applies to Bannon because he never went to court. Thank you for watching the Capitol Report. If you want to see our full broadcast, check us out at epochtv.com.